Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Timist Podcast Series. My name is James, and I am the Timist and the host of the thing you're currently listening to. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Blake, the founder of The Lonely Wrist, host of his own podcast, talented videographer, passionate watch collector, and the force behind the Vegas Watch Society. Blake takes us inside his world, sharing what it's like partnering with brands like Zenith, Junghans, and Doxa, and gives us a sneak peek at exciting new projects coming to his YouTube channel. We dive into his experiences interviewing industry heavyweights, his latest acquisitions, and the advice he'd give anyone stepping into the watch hobby, plus the story of how he got his very first timepiece. To close things out, and what truly makes this episode special, Blake opens up for the first time ever to talk about his personal journey into the watch world, the sacrifices, challenges, and family struggles that shaped him, and the determination that's driven him every step of the way. All this and so much more. So sit back, relax, grab a drink and a snack as we get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Timist Podcast Series. Today, I am thrilled to have my very first podcaster. He's a seasoned watch industry aficionado and a collector in his own right, having worked at an AD with over 20 plus watch brands and having founded the Vegas Watch Society, as well as being the host of the Lonely Wrist podcast, where he actually covers topics such as watch trends, historical walkthroughs, and naturally, in-depth interviews with prominent industry figures straight out of Las Vegas. I'm, of course, talking about Blake Rea. Blake, welcome. How are you today?
Hey man, what's up? That was a cool intro. Nice.
No, thank you. I try. Every guest deserves a fantastic intro because every guest is fantastic.
You didn't miss anything, which was nice.
Well, I try. But again, we've also gone back and forth and we've talked for a while, so I know a little bit about you. You know.
Yeah, I think your podcast, by the time this drops, your podcast with me might be dropping too.
Oh, funny.
That's a cool take.
Yeah. A doubles.
Yeah.
You're a very busy man, so I'm just glad that our schedules kind of finally linked up and we can spend some time talking shop. But before we dive into anything else, I just wanted to congratulate you on the excellent job that you did with the Junghans video, the historical walkthrough of the Bauhaus icon. That was some awesome work. Well done. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, I kind of want to. I guess I'm starting to feel a little bit privileged because I'm starting to tell these brand stories. And after I put these stories together, I just send it to the brands and hope that they don't shun me. They have no idea that I'm working on this video. And in that case, they were really supportive of that. And I actually have a new Junghans coming in to celebrate that video. I'm pretty excited.
One that I don't know of yet.
Right. It's the Junghans Max Built Mega Solar. So they were here in Vegas for Couture, which is a big jewelry watch show. There's less watch brands, but more of a jewelry show. And they were here. I got to spend some good quality time with them. Went out, had some beers, had some dinner. Got to really get personal with the Junghans family because the family of North America, the Zalg family, they started taking over like Junghans distribution for North America, and they are so lovely. So I got to spend some time with the wife, the daughter. They have a new guy, and during their presentation, I went around and I brought a bunch of friends, and I got hands on with the Mega Solar, which the entire watch with the bracelet, 31 grams.
So titanium. Wow, that's 31.
31 grams. And it's a solar powered movement. It's also radio controlled. And I was like, okay, this is freaking cool. If I travel, I think it's a great travel watch, especially considering when you land, it automatically sets the time from the radio waves. So I was like, okay, cool. So just how light it was and that like smoky dial, like you have to look up the pictures, but super excited for it to come in. Can't wait.
I'm excited for you. You're gonna have to send me some photos so I can superimpose them in this podcast.
Totally.
For viewers, listeners are just gonna have to use their imagination or Google it.
Yeah, we'll take care of them.
I love it. Congrats, well done. I'm excited to hear more about it. But also, you've done some other great videos in the past. You've worked with Maurice Lacroix, if I'm not mistaken, Doxa, and Zenith. Could you please tell me a little bit more about your video production work? Because I know that that's something that you actually actively do.
Yeah, I went to film school. I think I went to film school in like '09, like 2010, somewhere around there. It's been a long time. It feels like it's a lifetime ago. Um, yeah, I got out of it. I got back into it. And what better way to fuse my passions with watches and film? Yeah, so I have done some content with IWC. I've done some content with Panerai. I've done some content with Beauvais, JLC. Like they shut down the boutique and let me kind of like build out my favorite JLC watch collection, which is kind of cool. Who
Very,
else?
very Teddy Balthasari in that sense, a little bit, eh?
Yeah, yeah. That was actually one of the early videos I did. So my friend who I used to work with at the AD, he went over to the JLC boutique to introduce me to the manager, and he was like, "Hey, like we got Blake. Blake's awesome. Like let's just shut down the boutique a couple hours early and film this." And so it's on the YouTube. It's not as popular, but I'm working on a couple different kind of series that I think might hit. And one of them is nobody's really talking about like after sales. You buy a watch, you take care of it, but if something goes wrong, like what's it like to send it back to the brand? How frustrating and challenging is it? So I'm gonna do some series like that where I document the process of sending the watch in, communicating with the brands, how to get the watch in, how long it takes, the work that they do. That's one series I'm working on. And I kind of want to also, if I'm privileged enough to be able to tell the history of brands, like I want to, my friend has a Zenith book. And so I did briefly tell the story of Zenith when I went to the manufacturer, which was Last Watches and Wonders. And so I want to read his book and be able to tell that story because I've got a couple of vintage Zeniths and recently like three vintage Zeniths, and then I've actually purchased two new Zeniths. So I'm I'm on a kick right now, if anything. So
Well, I knew about the three Zeniths. These two ones that you just mentioned, are they newer than from when we last spoke?
yes. So one of them is the A385, which has like is the original Zenith Caliber 400, which is the one that they loaned to Rolex. And it's got this like golden like fume dial, freaking beautiful. And then the other one is the Defy. They used to call it the Time Vault, Time Coffin, something like that. I think it's the 3641, but essentially it's the octagonal case Defy Revival with the red like dial. I had a watch for the watch show that was here. I had a watch that I wasn't wearing. Um, and it was just sitting around collecting dust, and I liquidated it. And with that money, I rolled it into these two watches and then kept money in my pocket. So it seemed kind of like a win-win-win. So
Yeah, no, I mean, if you can do that, why not? That sounds amazing. Now, you've hinted a little bit about some of the videos that you're working on or you want to work on, or maybe you have started working on and you want to publish on your YouTube channel. But is there anything else that's maybe brewing on your channel that you can maybe impart with us in as few or as many words as you would like to share?
yeah, I have been working for a really long time on the Beauvais factory tour, manufacturer tour, which I also shot last year. Um, I have a tendency, and hopefully you guys see this at least. But I try and take the longer route. I'm not just a content factory, just popping out content, except for the podcasts, of course. But the YouTube videos, I really spend a lot of time, and we talked at length about this, spending time kind of curating the content, making a comprehensive video that doesn't really leave much, if anything, out. So, as I referenced some of the service videos, I've been shooting one for almost, I mean, I've been working on one for almost 20 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because it took what 14 months for it to come back from Omega, and then I've got one I'm working on for Cartier. I've got to watch a Bulgari right now, and that one is almost 14 months in the making. So and a lot of time, of course, is waiting for these service centers to take care of the watch, which we all know they're slow as hell. But people I think people need to see that side of the watch industry. People buy the watch and they think nothing's going to go wrong, or at least they don't think about it. What it comes like to deal with the brands after they've gotten your money the first time. So I think it's hopefully it'll be important and people will tune in, as I document this, like how they treat the watch, what do they fix? What does it cost? The communication was like to send the watch in. How long did it take? Um, that's the biggest one. A lot of the watches that I find for that series are at pawn shops. I mean, appropriately because I'm in Vegas, but watches that are vintage, especially challenging. Stuff that brands really don't know what to do with because they're not modern. Um, Beyond that, going back to tell the stories for brands, if I'm allowed to, or if I don't get cease and desist letters. Um, but yeah, I mean, and then the reviews here and there. People sending in watches. I have a Viren right now that I need to work on. I've got some Steel Reef links in sitting right here that I have been procrastinating putting a video together. And then also still working on my watches and wonders I mean, I'm so behind. I'm so behind. I feel so bad, but hopefully it's worth waiting for. But beyond that, just whatever comes up, whatever my mind tells me to do, my heart tells me to do, should I say.
Driven by your heart and your passion for watches. I love that, and I think a lot of people can appreciate and will resonate with that. But I'm curious, Vegas being what it is, do you feel like it is sort of a ideal space and a perfect ground for this type of content where you might turn a corner one day accidentally and walk into a pawn shop and find something wild and crazy that normally, most of us wouldn't encounter outside of Vegas?
Yeah, I think so. I hope so. There's two sides to that. And hopefully this is not the one that I get, but people pawn stuff because they need money, right? And hopefully in Vegas you didn't lose all your money, and hopefully I am not getting the watch that you had to pawn to get back home. But this pawn shop that I get a lot of watches from, they are a nationwide pawn shop. So they have, pawn shops in every state. I think every state. But the way that it works for them is, let's just say somebody pawns a watch in like Iowa or like, Spoanoke or, even North Dakota or somewhere in Nebraska, like these rural parts. They send it here to Vegas, thinking that it'll be easier to sell if it's like a Breitling or like a Tudor or like a Tag or a Rolex. There's much more of a market for it here. So in a weird way, you kind of get the best of both worlds, because of the way they're structured. And I picked up multiple watches from them. We talked last on, I think, on my podcast about the Cosmonaut, what I got from
Hmm.
them.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Very much so.
I had a Navitimer 1 that I also picked up from them. So ironically, I picked up a couple Breitlings from them. What else? My friend picked up last year. He's from this, your area too, the Washington area. But he came here for his birthday and he found this like really cool, like gold Cartier lighter. Super
Oh,
cool.
wow. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then they call me when crazy comes in, and just a few weeks ago they like, hey, we want you to come take a look at this watch, and it was a pre Daytona, like a 6163 or something. Like I can't remember what the reference. I'm not a huge Rolex like guy, like expert, but it was a pre Daytona, which was super cool to see, and it had Rolex service papers. It was like all authenticated, and it was ready to go out the door, which was super cool to see. And take the case back off and look at they were using I think it was Lamania calibers back then, or Valjoux or something, I think it was Lamania calibers, but freaking cool watch. And I wish I could have bought it, but whatever. Expensive watch. They have a watchmaker on site. I mean, what else could you ask for? Sometimes I just stumble in there with money in my pocket and I'm just looking for anything, right? And so yeah, they're a great pawn shop for sure.
Awesome. It sounds like the perfect setup for this new series that you're working on your YouTube channel. But
Yep.
I also want to touch up a little bit on your podcast because you've interviewed quite the roster of guests on your podcast, The Lonely Wrist. And I will dare and ask you the same question that you asked me when I was sitting in your hot seat. And that is, how do you go about figuring out who you would like to invite on your podcast? And then how do you go about connecting with them? Because it's a conundrum that I personally am still trying to work through. So I'm curious how you go about navigating these sorts of waters.
I think it goes back to kind of what we talked about with the YouTube series, but just heart, intuition maybe. I try to cycle it out. So like I'll go through like phases. Like one phase will be like watch brands, and another phase I'm now starting to go into content creators. Um, at some point I'll probably go into collectors. But yeah, it just all starts with, just hey, this I think they'd be a great guest. Let me reach out, and then I just reach out till I get a yes.
Is that Instagram, email? Are you calling them up? Are you knocking on their doors?
Instagram has been a very easy platform. I think now, like back in the day, Instagram used to be very ignored. But I have friends that I just communicate with just entirely on Instagram now. So I think Instagram has shifted more from a social media platform to kind of like Facebook did ever since Facebook started doing Facebook Messenger. um, it's became a tool to communicate with people, and people regularly check their DMs. So yeah, Instagram DMs. Thank you so much for all of your support. And yeah, it mostly DMs. Sometimes I even get referrals. Hey, look, like I just had somebody on my podcast. I want to refer somebody to your podcast. Um, we've had that happen quite a bit too. And so yeah, we're going through now. I'm also going through podcasters now. I think maybe I don't know if you know that, but um
I wasn't aware.
well, yeah, so it's you, and then I have Rashawn Smith from Risk Check Pod. I just dropped with him. You're dropping on the 24th, so that's next week. And yeah. So thank you, Instagram DMs, and thank you for people for replying. And yeah, I'm pretty persistent. I'm kind of annoying. If just say no or yes.
Hmm.
Don't get me beat around, but I follow up like crazy. Like right now, I'm trying to get an author on. He wrote a book on watch collecting, and it's a very illustrative book. But it's like his name's Clement Mazepin. You can go to Barnes and Noble right now, and his book is sitting there. It's like Exceptional Watches, an amazing book. I just saw it like it was suggested to me on Amazon as like hey, you might like this, and it was like really cheap. And I was like, when I say really cheap, like these watch books are hundreds of dollars, but this one was like $35, and I was like, oh, there's okay, like if I don't like it, I'll just return it, whatever. I opened it, and it's an amazing book. It's an amazing book, and so I started following him on Instagram, and then I've been texting him, and then yeah, it's just he's writing another book now, so we've been having trying to get some scheduling down, but yeah, a lot of time it's just persistence and just trying to make schedules meet.
Sage
So
advice, sage advice. So for any would-be podcasters or content creators, just be persistent and consider reaching out to folks
yeah,
cold on Instagram, eh?
yeah, I think it depends on the content creator, but I
Hmm.
think once you have a portfolio of work, um, it's easy to say, hey, look, here's what I do, but if you're just getting going, have a concept, that was where I started. I started off like pitching a concept, and then instead of having like a portfolio or a whole plethora of like over 50 podcasts. Um, but it's much easier to pitch an idea than it is, and then once you have like you, right, it's probably going to just get easier, as you
Right.
go.
When you have a body of work that you can turn around and kind of put your figure at and be like, this is who I am and what I'm all about. And some of the people that I've engaged with, it is much easier to start that conversation. You're right.
Yeah, and you have a great outlet, you have a great podcast, and so just it right, it'll just snowball. I think for like it has for me. I think you're not you haven't done as many episodes, which is perfectly fine, of course. But yeah, I think it'll just snowball at
Yeah.
some.
So how many episodes have you actually published? And when did you actually kick off the Lonely Wrist podcast?
So we publish every 2 weeks, and we are, as of right now, we have recorded. Let me see. I just had it up. This one is 52. So What is that? 104 weeks
Wow.
ago. So just over 2 years.
Wow. Wow. Well done.
Thank you.
Impressive. Well done. And I said it on your podcast, but I'll say it on mine as well. Thank you for the invite. I appreciate you extending an invite, and I thoroughly enjoyed my time chatting with you about watches and a bunch of other stuff. So tune into the Lonely Wrist to check out that episode.
Yeah, yeah. Next week, the 24th. I'm ready for it to drop. Um, it's cool, and I think I told you this, but everybody has a different perspective on watches, and I feel like this isn't my platform. This is very much a community powered
Mm.
platform. So I've said it before, and when brands reach out to me or whoever, hey, can we come on your podcast? I'm like, yeah, sure. They're like, oh wow, that was easy. Like, this is if you have a unique perspective on watches, like this, we just recorded one with a watch collector, but he's a watch enthusiast, but he's not in the watch industry. So like
Interesting.
he's not an industry insider.
Hmm.
But the reason why he came on is because he has a very unique relationship with time. And to give you some context, he was 23 in a car accident, T-boned, almost died, forgot everything for his first 23 years, married with a child. So he had to start over at 23. And so for ten years, he pretended that he remembered things to keep the friction um, from destroying his family. And so I was like, how am I going to wrap this into a podcast? But then it just kind of dawned on me, like he probably has a relationship with time that none of us will maybe ever will, and that's the story, right? So that's going to be coming up, I think, after your podcast. But
That's amazing. That's incredible and pretty wild. Well
it is,
done.
yeah, yeah. So anybody who has a perspective on time horology, um, yeah, this platform is I'm just the keeper, right?
I love that spirit. I love that sentiment. Good on you. Well done. Let's talk about watches a little bit. The last time we spoke, you had somewhere around 150 plus timepieces in your collection, if I'm not mistaken. Give me, if you can, one watch that you regret letting go and one watch that you couldn't wait to find a new home for.
One watch that I regret letting go. Let me think about that. So I had a steel Cartier tank, and I regret letting it go because I used it in one of my first YouTube videos. It was like why you need a Cartier tank, and I got clowned on that, for so hard because nobody needs a Cartier tank. But I think if you're a watch enthusiast and you're looking for the best bang for your buck under 3 grand, the most iconic watch is going to be the Cartier Tank under 3 grand, especially an older steel version, right? So, anyways, so I sold that Cartier Tank. Wish I didn't, but funny enough, the watch show that I sold it at last year, which is Couture, there's a vintage watch show that runs parallel to it. The dealer that I sold it to had it at their showcase. It still hasn't sold.
That watch, that same watch.
Exact same watch. I remember I mean, I literally almost bought it back. Orange, it had this orange strap. I went to Cartier, and when I first I bought the watch head, and the strap was just thrashed. So I'm like, look, I need to immediately get rid of this. So I went into Cartier, and I was like, hey, like I got this watch. I think my first Cartier. Like I need a strap, and they had it on the spot. I will never forget. I was like, how the hell were you gonna have a leather calf? Orange strap. Like I'm the only person. I love orange. I need an orange strap. Like Kevin O'Leary with his red straps. Like I
Yeah.
am the orange strap guy. So yeah, I saw it in that showcase, and I wanted to buy it back so bad. But the reason why I didn't buy it back is because I also have a Cartier tank in gold. So if I'm gonna choose between the steel and the gold, what do you think I'm gonna choose? The
Gold.
right, right. So
Gold.
so hopefully somebody else will enjoy it. The one that I am happy that I got rid of, I'm gonna get clowned on this so hard. but the Rolex Submariner.
Interesting. Date? No date?
Date Starbucks.
What year?
I bought it brand new
Oh, wow.
from an AD. So
And
they might blacklist me, but no, in all fairness, I got it in 2023. Um and it wasn't getting any wrist time. And
mhm.
then I also had a kind of an off flavorful experience. I was the guy that was like, look, like they need to make a Rolex Submariner on Oyster Flex. So what do? I'm the guy that goes out and gets some Oyster Flex end links or some Oyster Flex straps. Holy are they expensive, by the way. And
How,
then
how much are they?
300 a side,
Oh, wow.
so $600.
And
And then
these are OEM?
oh yeah,
Wow.
and yeah, they have like letters for each side. So like like you're gonna be like an E and an F or like an A and a B or like a C. It's like how do you even whatever. Um, so I bought those Oyster Flex straps and then I bought an InLink, like a Chinese like special InLink, and it was absolutely stunning. I'm gonna have to send another video.
Mhm.
So I put my Submariner on Oyster Flex and I walked into a local dealer here and they were like, "What are you wearing?" And I was like, "Just my Submariner." They're like, "No, you're not supposed to wear your watch like that." And I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, you're wearing a Submariner on Oyster Flex. Like you have to keep it on the Oyster bracelet. And then, so anyways, I was like, I didn't pay any attention to them. I'm like, look, this is my watch. I'll do what the hell I want. But then anyways, as the watch show came around, again, I reference this a lot. Um, but but anyways, I'm sitting down and I'm contemplating. I'm talking to my wife. I'm talking to my friends. I brought a couple friends with me, and I was like, hey, like, do you think I should unload the Rolex? I'm just not wearing it. If I'm gonna choose a roll, I also have a Wimbledon, like a 41 Wimbledon on the fluted bezel with the Jubilee, which I absolutely love. So if I'm gonna choose a Rolex, I'm gonna choose that. But anyways, so we're sitting down and these ladies sit next to us or across from us, like, hey, just trying to chat it up. And I'm like, hey, like, who are you? Like, what do you do? Like, oh, we have a jewelry shop in New York. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. And just trying to small talk, like, oh, what brands do you have? Oh, we have Rolex, we have Grand Seiko, da 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 da. Um, and I was like, oh, how long have you been a Rolex? Oh, like 25 years. Lovely ladies. But I told them the exact same story I just told. And then they're like, you have a Rolex on Oyster Flex? And I was like, yeah. And then I showed them a picture and they're like, I can't unsee that. And I'm like, what? And then, I don't understand. They're like, oh, it's destroying the integrity of the brand.
Mhm.
And so right then and there, I'm like, if there's a watch that I can't, and you see a lot of explorers now on NATO's and all that stuff. Um, but I'm starting to kind of turn around and rethink, my relationship with Rolex. Um, because I want my watch to be me, right? I like to have fun with my watches, and if I'm gonna get hated on or at least looked at weird for even having it on, and it looks sick on Oyster Flex. I'll have to show you. I will for sure send you a picture. But I told my friend, he's like, dude, like that's like the dream to have the Submariner Oyster Flex. And anyways, just so yeah, the Submariner, bye bye.
So that was the one that you were happy to rehouse.
Definitely.
I love the Oyster Flex. I love the idea of basically most professional Rolex pieces on an Oyster Flex. I would highly consider putting my Pepsi on an Oyster Flex just because I love rubber straps and I love the idea that I am also like a material science nerd. The fact that the Oyster Flex has like that thin titanium strip on the inside to give it that strength, just I love that. I'm a nerd for it. But thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing.
Be prepared to get some weird eyeballs with if you do it. It's totally worth it. Totally worth it to do it.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
Who paid for that Rolex Submariner?
I did, of course.
Okay, and so then you do whatever you want with it.
I know that. But something that started twisting me around a little bit more. is, as I'm in these rooms of people who aren't watch enthusiasts but watch curious, they have a
Hmm.
Rolex, they have a Submariner, they have a Daytona, they have a Pepsi, they have whatever, right? Um, I wanted something, and as a collector, I wanted to transcend that stereotype of like people saying, "Oh, he could just be a whatever. He just got a nice watch." I want somebody to look at my watch and say, "He knows watches." And a Rolex Submariner, a Daytona, sorry, is not that watch. Um,
I've had this conversation with a couple of folks in the past as well, where there are certain watches that when you see them on someone's wrist, you're not quite sure whether that person is a watch person or if they're a hype person or if it's all about image. And in their minds, owning this watch on their wrist means that they are successful. Um, Whereas there are certain watches where if someone is wearing it, there's no way under the sun that this person isn't a watch nerd. And you're going to have an interesting watch conversation. Not to say that one is better than the other. Like people do whatever they want with their money, right? It's your money, spend it how you see fit. But as far as engaging conversations, and of course this is also personal preference. Like some people want to connect with that person that is just it looks cool and it's the in thing, it's the hype thing, it's the Mercedes G class of watches.
yeah.
Um, that's fine. Find your tribe, find your people. But there's some people that sort of yearn and want that more in-depth conversation. And some watches will give that to you. And you'll see it on their wrist and you'll go, "Yep, this is one of them people, one of my people." So, totally understandable. I get it. And, do you, like, you do you and have fun with your watches and don't let anyone poo poo the way you choose to collect and enjoy your timepieces. That's my response to that.
It's a valid, perfect response. I agree. And and that's where I'm at in my collecting journey. Like I want watches that say, "Hey, this is a watch guy. He knows watches. Like I respect." And so I got, like I said, I got two Zeniths. So,
Well done. Well done. Congrats. What was your first watch, actually?
so my first like watch or like my first like Swiss watch.
Let's say first watch.
Okay, it was an Invicta. Um, what is it? It's like an Invicta chronograph.
Okay. If you thought that you were going to get clowned on because you sold the Rolex Submariner,
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry, but I'm honest.
don't.
But
It's
no.
all good.
So funny story on how I got even this watch.
Yeah.
So my mom was a property manager, and she worked at this apartment complex, and I was helping my mom like with handiwork. Like we had friends, like it was me and my brother. They had this handyman that was like the same age as me and my brother. And so we were always hanging out, but he's like, "Hey, dude, if you want to make some extra money, like, come help me lay tile." And I'm like, "Okay, cool. How hard can that be?" It's hard work. Um, but anyways, so I'm outside, like we just laid an entire like living area, like maybe like 700, 800 square feet of tile, and I'm cutting and he's laying. So anyways, as I'm cutting, I literally take a break. I look on the window sill and I see a watch. And that watch is the Invicta. And so I gave it to my mom. I try to always do the right thing. So I go to my mom and say, "Hey mom, like I found this, like put it in your lost and found, maybe somebody's gonna be looking for this." And then she's like, "Okay, cool," and then I think she sent out an email or like I don't know exactly how she gave notice or whatever. Um, but anyways, I would go in like every day after like I get off the bus stop. And this is mind you, I was like 16, 17, like I was younger. But I get off the bus and I would walk past my mom's office and I would come in every day to say, "Hey mom, is that watch still here?" Like and and so she would say, "Oh, well, we have to hold it for this long." And it was like 90 days. So it was like 90 office visits later. Eventually she's like, "Nobody claimed it. It's yours." And it was a two-tone Invicta chronograph. And I just remember thinking it was so cool. I loved it. And And then later I got like an Invicta Pro Diver, which was all gold.
Wow.
And I would wear it so much that the gold would start to like flake off, like it just rubs right off. And then yeah, and then I went through like, Instagram watch brands. Like I got like an AV8 there was one, like my first watch collaboration. They sent me a watch to do a piece on. I just started breaking into Instagram. I started off my Instagram account as a photographer, filmmaker, and I was like, hey, I remember saying like they're not gonna say yes, but like, hey, like I've got 4,000 followers. If you want to send me this watch, I'll make a reel about it or something. And I was like, they're no. And then sure enough, they sent me one. And then my first Swiss watch, which I have a very unique relationship with the brand. I don't work with them, but Luminox.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so yeah, Luminox is awesome. So yeah, it's a Luminox little Swiss quartz, which I still have.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. I do love your your story about laying tile and finding that Invicta. Again, these are things that are not requirements in this life. They're nice things to have. They bring us little bits of joy. Again, I will say there's a lot of people that poo-poo brands. At the end of the day, it's your life, it's your money, it's your memories, your life experiences. And thank you for sharing it. Like it brought a smile to my face, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Like
Yeah.
I love the fact that's how you got your first watch. With that said, from our previous engagements, I know that you've had some highs and some lows, both in your personal and professional parts of your life. And I think we can all sort of relate to that to a certain degree. Life is life for all of us. And as you know, oftentimes social media can paint a different picture from what reality and normal life really truly is. Everyone wants to, in a way, highlight and celebrate their victories, their highs, and their wins. No one ever really celebrates their lows or their losses, which, again, is understandable. You get it. I get it. But even so, I know you share this sentiment with me, and that is it's important to be authentic and honest and real. And with that in mind, what I want to do right now is open up the floor and let you tell us your story. Tell us about Blake Rea and your journey in as many words or as few words as you feel comfortable with, from essentially how you got started in this watch space to, well, today.
It's a long story. Um, so my wife is from Europe, and her and I had spent quite a lot of time living in Europe. And I was a watch guy then, but as I came back, we were working on like the visa process, immigration paperwork, yada yada yada. So anyways, I came back and I was just, my wife, while she was living in Europe and I was here, she was sleeping, in the evenings. So we really didn't have much time to talk. So I was like, let me just do something productive. Took a job at the watch store, while the paperwork, the process, I just knew it was going to be expensive. And I was like, oh, like it might just be a way for me to pass time, like till she comes. So I took a job at the dealer. Um, and I looked at it as a way of like not, I didn't go in there to sell watches, which was very weird to say now that I look back. But I started off just going in there as a way to meet people who are watch enthusiasts, like you, like us, like, just as a way to meet more watch curious, because I had no idea like how to meet watch people. I had no idea. And so everybody that walked in, every opportunity I had, I was like, hey, this is a friend, this is a watch friend. This is somebody that shares the same passion as me. Not always, but most likely they're going to be a watch nerd. So I took that mentality and ran with it. And in Vegas, everybody's just trying to sell you some, So I think maybe I guess I don't know if I mean there was rough months, but there was really good months, where I was selling a lot. Um, at least I felt like a lot. And so yeah, I didn't take it very seriously. And whenever I had an incident at work where I was like walking somebody downstairs because we had like a couple boutiques, and so we'd walk in between the two, or three, and uh, and so like I just like got hit by like a what I thought was like a bolt of lightning. Like I like look up and I'm just like, I just I felt like a bolt of lightning like went through me. um, and then I was like mid sentence, I just stopped talking, and then just kind of like shrugged it off, like, and then just kept going. And then as I come back up after I finish with the customer, like I told my supervisor, I was like, hey, like I don't know what happened, but like I just like froze up, like I got hit by a bolt of lightning. They're like, oh, you should probably go to the doctor. And I was like, yeah, it's probably a good idea. So anyways, I pack up all my stuff and just head out to the ER. And then and anyways, like, they start doing all the testing. I remember I was texting my associate. He was like, dude, like, let's keep you posted. What's going on? Uh, Nothing, like nothing. So I'm like, this is weird. This is so weird. So I just keep kind of pursuing, like, you have to be your own advocate, at least in the American healthcare system. Like doctors are going to shrug you off, I think is very weird. But anyway, so I just keep going down the rabbit hole, rabbit hole, rabbit hole. Um, when we'd exhausted everything, they're like, okay, well now you're gonna have to go to neurology and start all over. So go to neurology, and then I do like essentially like an in-office like EEG, where essentially they just like hook you up to like a brainwave monitor. And they had told me that I was having, focal like seizures, you know, and so yeah, I immediately was like freaked out. Like I was like, like I didn't know, because when you think of a seizure, like you think of somebody falling on the ground and like having a grand mal type event. But as I started doing like research on seizures and epilepsy, it opened my like mind to like being epileptic. And and anyway, so like you can have seizures in small parts of your brain, what they call focal aware seizures, and that's what I was having. So it was in the left temporal lobe, and essentially it would just cause me to forget things. It would just cause me to freeze. Like, people would never know that I was having a seizure. Um, and so I told my boss, and they were like, I was just like, yeah, I don't know what this means, but like, I don't know what to do. And then they were like, very kind of like, okay, well, we don't know like if we can rely on you to come to work anymore. So like they like slowly started like weaning my hours back. I think I had like they were working on the schedule or something. I mean, I had like a couple shifts left or something. And so after that, it was really challenging. It was like really challenging to like understand like what is epilepsy, like how it affects you, like trying to recover, get healthy. And then, meanwhile, like I was earning all this money, like, working at the watch shop on top of like my day job. And and then, it's like, okay, then half your income's cut, right? And then I was on health insurance from the watch company. So then I was like, oh, now I got to find a new health insurance provider. Now knowing that I have epilepsy, and it was really difficult, man. It was really challenging. And then that's how like Lonely Risk started, you know, like it was my way of keeping my foot in the industry. A lot of the relationships I built, friends, right? When a watch release would come out, they would say, hey, what do you think about this one or that one? And then I would have that same conversation with 30, 40, 50 people. And I'm like, I cannot. And so I said something to my wife. I was like, how do I like talk to everybody at one time, with like, and then it was like, oh, well, we just need to start like a Zoom session where people can join, like a webinar type, and I was like, well, like, let's just say people um, aren't able to tune in, but they still want to hear what I have to say, because that's the thing. Like, how do I get everybody's schedules to sync? And it's impossible. So then ultimately the platform became a podcast, right? And I was thinking, I was like, okay, like for the first podcast, like I have to have like an epic guest, like I have to like go crazy and find the best guest that I can find. Um, at the first one that I actually recorded was with Periscope, Jose Perestroika, like the investigative watch journalist. And I was like, either everybody's gonna love me or everybody's gonna hate me because he rubs shoulders and he pisses off a lot of brands. So anyways, but ironically, at the time we were doing a lot of editing. And so, there's just a lot of stuff that I mean, it was a really long podcast. So it ended up being like the third one that we published. But after we published, I say pretty much in every episode that I'm from Vegas because I'm proud to live in Vegas. And there's not a huge watch community here, which it seems like there would be. Um, but anyway, so right after that, I launched that podcast and I get an email and I'm like, like from somebody at Rob Report. And this was like, I mean, I think it was like 2 years ago. But they're like, hey, we're doing a panel in Vegas and we want you to speak on it. And so I was like, oh, that's cool. Hell yeah. So I'm signing the waivers, da 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 da. Um, I'm a huge fan of watch content creators. So I started watching YouTube videos like about what watches I should acquire. Um, and then full circle moment, but I go to the watch show looking for a Speedmaster Mark II. And then as I'm asking somebody, I was like, oh, we don't have anything like that. This guy's like, oh, cool. Like, check me out. Gives me his business card. I don't think anything of it. Go home, go back to my favorite YouTube videos. And it was Cameron Barr from Craft and Tailored. He gave me his business card, and his video was the one that inspired me to get a Speedmaster Mark II. So I was like, oh, that's a weird full circle moment. So, anyways, that was how we first met. But at this panel, I'm thinking like, oh, like this, like, what is this gonna be me? Da 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 da. I have no idea like anything about the panel. They're like, hey, just talk about watch collecting. That's all we want you to throw your perspective on. Sitting next to me is none other than Cameron Barr from Grafton Taylor. So, um, so it was just a weird circle moment. Um, and I don't know like what or how or whatever. Um, like my career or my passion or what I mean my passion long predated me sitting on that panel, but I don't know if that solidified me as a watch guru aficionado, what I don't know, whatever you want to call me. But I'm like, here I am sitting up next to somebody who like knows more about watches, like he will forget more about watches than I will ever know. um and yeah, and then it took me like I did a podcast with him. It took me like almost a year of like chasing him down to get him to do an episode of the pod. Now we're good friends. Now we talk pretty regularly, and yeah, so that's how Lonely Risk got started. And then after that, it was like we need to make our content accessible for everybody. Accessibility is very important. How people can choose to consume our content. So I was like, okay, we definitely need a website. And then we put the website up there. Wasn't getting a lot of traffic, but I was like, maybe what we could do is just blog, like talk about watch content, talk about our top 5 best IWCs or, top 10 Panerais or whatever it is, right? Um, so we started doing that, and then we started mixing the articles with the video content or the podcast content. Um, and then naturally, my film school experience just came right back in, and I was like, okay, we need to start on YouTube. And then at the time, Justin, he was really big and pushing. Um, my wife was here, helping me kind of like grow the outlet. She was spending a lot of time helping me with stuff, doing some podcast editing, yada yada yada. Um, you know, this is what I don't think I've ever told anybody, but it became the it's a passion still. Like it doesn't we don't make a lot of money doing this. I think I told on one of these other episodes that's going to be probably after, but I'm making with the entire Lonely Risk like outlet. I'm making less than like $15,000 or $20,000 a year. Like that's not a lot of money. Like you can't do anything with that. Like that's one Rolex watch, you know. So anyways, we're spending all this time doing all this work and it's not paying off. Not putting money in the pocket is what I mean when I say paying off. So Justin, the one who I started it with, was like, "Hey, dude, I just can't keep doing this," you know, and I was like, "Yeah, well, like, because his passion was getting sucked away, right? Because this is hard work. Like creating content is really hard work." So he kind of bowed out. Um, and I was like, yeah, well, if something changes, man, just let me know. And then, so he bowed out. And then in June of last year, same time, my wife left me. And when I say left me, she went back to Europe to spend time with her family. Um, and her whole thing is like she wants to spend like 6 or 8 months in Europe a year. And I'm like, okay, that's really, really challenging for your wife to be gone half the year. So during that time, Justin left me, wife left me, and I'm like, now this is just me. Like all the website work, the podcast editing, the YouTube, the shooting, um, it just all fell into my lap. Like, okay, this is all my responsibility. Like, do I shut it down? Do I keep it going? Like, what do I do? And so during that, I just decided to keep going. Uh, and this was me. So my friend, we have a watch club here. You mentioned Vegas Watch Society. We have a couple chapters. We have an Atlanta chapter. We have a Des Moines chapter. We have one in the Bahamas. We have one in Austin. And so my friend started one in Iowa, like one of my best buddies, Chris, and I went out there to see him. Um, while my wife and everybody, just to kind of like go to one of his club meetings, just to get, I was like, look, I need a break. I'm just gonna go hang out with Chris and one of my friends, our friend Nick. He's a pro baseball player. He was playing for Kansas City Royals, and then he got hurt and he got put down to the minors. And so I was like, oh, cool. I'm going to go see him play some baseball too. So it's kind of like one of like my bucket lists. Um, anyways, this is where the tragedy starts to kind of spiral. So my dad dropped me off at the airport. And then, like an hour or two later, my dad calls me. He's like, hey, dude, like I got a headache. Like, like my dad for a couple years had been complaining about headaches, like especially in the summer. It gets really hot in Vegas. And I was like, oh, okay, like you're probably just dehydrated. Like just drink a bunch of water, go to sleep, whatever, take aspirin. He's like, cool, no problem. So does that, and then like 3 hours later, after I tell him that, he's calling me again, and he's like, my head is killing me, man. I'm like, look, just call 911. So he calls 911. And then I don't hear from him for like 12 hours, 20 hours, something like that. And I mind you, I'm just like, I'm trying to call, phone's off. And so the next morning at breakfast, I'm sitting down with my friend, the pro baseball player, my friend Chris, and I find out that he had a heart attack, and then and that he's like on like a ventilator. And then so apparently he also had pneumonia. So, your body's fighting pneumonia and then having a heart attack. So his body's just like, what the hell? Like what to do? The body just doesn't know what to do. So anyways, so as soon as I find out, I was flying back the next day. I was like I was talking. I eventually he got his phone on. They put like a balloon in him to keep. He had 100% blockage in his like widowmaker, which after that it like supplies your lungs, whatever. So he's having a hard time breathing. Um, so anyways, fly back the next day. After my friend, I got to see my friend play baseball, which was crazy. He hit like 2 or 3 home runs that one night, which was insane. And I was just texting my dad. He's like, "Oh, well, they're gonna do surgery." Their original plan was to put him on antibiotics for the pneumonia to subside, and then to do the surgery. And then they just had to rush in because my dad was not comfortable with the balloon. So just rushed in, did a quadruple bypass. I come back, and then This was July 4th. So the next time I talk to my dad, I come back July 4th. My dad is intubated on a ventilator. No, I can't talk to him. The next time I talked to my dad was July 20th, right? So from July 4th to July 20th on it and intubated. Um, so apparently, his heart was going after the heart surgery. His heart was going into AFib and just freaking out. Like, your heart gets really agitated during a heart surgery. So the way the doctors describe it. But because they were giving him so much antibiotics to fight his his pneumonia, like his liver is like taxed. Like your heart medication is processed through your liver. So like, well, we can't even give him any heart medication to keep his heart beating normally. So eventually, I was just, I didn't know what to do. And they were like, oh, like, I was like, what can I do? What are you going to do? And they're like, nothing, like, we can't do anything. So anyways, yeah, like a few days later, I'm going in every day, like just sitting there every single day, like at the hospital with my dad. He like fought through, man. Crazy, crazy. His heart started beating normally. Um, and then he went into like a transitional care facility, and that was like July 31st. He was like up, like my uncle flew in, got to see my dad, spend some time. Um, and then and yeah, so from there, after that, he really made it through, man. It was crazy. It was crazy. It was really crazy to see like how um I mean the human body is a miracle machine, you know. Um so he went into like a transitional care facility or like a upstairs. It was like kind of like a little mini rehab center. And then he had more complications. So he got pushed back down to ICU and then pushed back up to transitional care like a week later. Um, After that, he was at the rehab center for about 7 or 8 days. And most people don't know this, but if you're intubated for that long, dude, you lose so much muscle. So much. I mean, like, my dad was like a stick man. Like, he went from like maybe like 160, like 170 to like 110, like 112. Like he couldn't even like stand up on his own two legs. So after that, he went to the new rehab center. Everything was good, man. Everything was great. Um, he literally was supposed to stay there for another week, and he just was like, "Dude, I can't stay here. Like, just sign me out." So I was like, "If that's what you," I mean, we argued about it for a really long time. So eventually I checked him out, and then got him home. And, he had like one of these like life vests, which essentially is like a defibrillation vest that he was supposed to wear. When we were getting him into the wheelchair, like he took the vest off because he was like, it's so uncomfortable. It's got cords. It's got this, you have to keep it plugged in, all this shit. And he's like, oh, I'll put it back on when we get back to the house. Like, okay, cool, whatever. So we get back to the house. And then, then I'm like, oh, I have to learn his medication schedule. I have to learn how to take care of him. Like my dad's not using the bathroom properly. I have to pick him up. I have to put him on the toilet. Like, just all the, like I have to play nurse. Like I have to cook for him. I have to clean after him. Like it was so hard, man. And then I'm just learning how to even take his blood sugar because they said he was diabetic now. Um, and then anyways, so we were working on like contingency plans, like planning his will, like just kind of like it makes you think really difficultly like how life can change just overnight because he was on the golf course on a Monday, had a heart attack on a Thursday, so anyways, working on his will, yada yada yada. I like asked a friend to come meet me because I'm like, dude, I don't even know how to deal with all this. Like, this is so challenging. My wife's gone. Like, I've got so much work piling up. Like I'll be lucky to even keep my job in IT, with all this. And then so, a doctor here in Nevada was like, oh, well, we need to get him. We have to have a primary care doctor for him to refer him to a home health program, home care program. So cool, he's on oxygen. And he was like, "Oh, well, we shouldn't get an oxygen tank, like a little portable one. They make those little wheeler ones that are on like little dollies." And so we had a machine, and I was like, "Okay, cool. Well, we're gonna go to a doctor tomorrow, get you signed off on home care, like give me some help, yada yada yada." We'd already worked on his will, everything, and then my dad had texted me that night. He's like, "Hey, let the dog down." Like my dog, like was crying, Millie. And so, anyways, yeah, I wake up and I'm letting the dogs out first thing in the morning, and I'm like, like, "Hey, Dad, uh, like, what do you want for breakfast?" Like, no response. And then, like, I mean, I could see like part of his hand on top of the couch, and then I go over and I like, try and like like push him to wake him up, and dude, he's just ice cold. And so yeah, I try and check for a pulse. No pulse. Call 911. My dad was dead. Yep. So
Like, I'm so sorry. My heart goes out to you, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry for all the things that you've gone through. Um, that is tough. Life is tough sometimes. Sometimes it's more tough on certain people than others. And I'm sorry that, you experienced all of that
yeah,
combination of just bad things.
yeah, it for a while, like I didn't even process it.
Hmm.
Like I don't know if I still have processed it. Like here it is a year later on Father's Day, right? So, but anyways, like in a weird way, like me and my dad, like we never really found ourselves like too far apart.
Hmm.
Like like I moved to Vegas because of my dad. Like I moved back to Raleigh because of my dad. Like um and so we had this weird, like in a weird way, kind of like a codependent relationship. Like at the time I wasn't married. When we started we started living together. And it was like, well, why do I want to live by myself? Like, I'm living with pops, like we get, get to go, hang out every weekend, and like, we get to, pay half, right? Or what it would cost to live. And we get to, save that money or invest it or whatever, whatever. So I never really kind of like moved away from dad. I never really had a need to, you know what I mean? Like, I know that sounds weird, but here, here I am. I was like 30 years old, like still living with dad, but I mean, we were roommates, man. That was the way we looked at it. And so yeah, never really like kind of like just kind of weaned apart. And then um yeah, I mean now that he's gone, like it I didn't really realize how like codependent we were on each other. You know what I mean? Like we did a lot of stuff together. Um I mean we would go like spend every Sunday together. I mean we would I mean yeah, I mean we were getting ready to buy a house together. And he's like, "Well, when I pass away, this is gonna be your house." At the time, my wife had moved in, and that was hard. Like with my dad and my wife living in the same house, and that was why we had such a big house. We had like a really large, like 3,400, 3,500 square foot house or something, which is way more than we ever needed. But that way we could kind of live separately, but still, you know, I mean, it was cheaper to live like that than for me to get an apartment. Um, so yeah, it's just it's weird. I'm not here to like get a sobby story or anything, but um life is super hard, man, and you take it for granted every single day, and like every day is a gift. And I'm not really religious, but um this was really weird. And after he had passed away, like I said, I found him on the couch downstairs. I lived in the house for like a month and a half after he passed away, in the house that he died in. And then like he had like his room, like it was my bedroom, my office, the bathroom, and his bedroom, and they were all like in one little, like, this was all upstairs, so he would literally just sleep upstairs, and then he'd pretty much live downstairs. But he had a cat, and so like I went and bought one of these little like cat door crackers that like holds the door open for the cat. And on the side of his like, I mean, at this point, we're not even a watch podcast anymore. But at the side of his like window, like dude, I could swear like I was seeing some like like I don't know what they were, but they were like body. shadows. Like I know I maybe I'm just freaking crazy, but yeah, yeah. I mean, I saw like weird orbs, like in the shape of because I could look through that crack and see the window, right? And then I would open the door, and of course nobody was there. Um, but yeah. So I just thought I was going crazy. So I knew I had to move, like very quickly after that. Um, and I moved. I moved. I was talking to my wife. My wife was planning to come back. You know, we were working on getting her back. Trying to figure out when, where, what time. I moved. Like I can see my old house from where I live now, like in the cul-de-sac. Um, and so I hired these movers to help us move, and then and yeah, so my wife has a lot of like family jewelry, like engagement ring, wedding ring. She didn't want to bring that back to Russia, so she left it here. And during the move, all of that got lost. Like immediately after, like all of her family jewelry, like the wedding ring, engagement band, all of her jewelry, like just lost overnight. So here I am moving by myself and then losing all my wife's jewelry and then suffering with the loss of my dad. Uh
And with your own personal health issues.
and with my yeah, exactly. So it's just a big cocktail of last summer was the summer, I think.
Thank you, first of all, for sharing and for feeling comfortable and for imparting your story with me and with the viewers and the listeners. Um, it can't be easy, and it is wildly, weirdly, strangely fitting, given that today is, at the time of recording, Father's Day. I think it's a wonderful tribute to him, and I think the fighting spirit that your dad exhibited lives on in you. And that ties into what you were mentioning a little bit earlier. We don't know what's in the great beyond. We don't know what happens. But to know that your dad was playing golf on Monday and on Thursday he was hit with a health issue um, that kind of snowballed, um, and then he pulled through for large part of it, says a lot about his fighting spirit. And from everything that you've just shared with us just now, it sounds like that fighting spirit lives on in you. There's a
Yeah.
lot of things that you've been through, right? Kudos to you for powering through and being able to continue on marching forwards.
It's like there's so much more that I was juggling that I didn't even really like even think about because I was working on his estate. Like I was the
Mhm.
executor of his will that never got signed. So I'm like working on like trying to divvy up his assets, like, make sure that my brother's taken care of, which me and my brother have like a weird kind of relationship. Um, yeah, I mean, just trying to keep everything afloat, you know. Yeah,
Which I'm sure you weren't even processing at the time. Like you weren't actually taking into account all the things that you were working through just because you were so heads down working through them.
right.
Um, so again, kudos, props, and respect to you. Um, it's complicated. Life is complicated, and thank you again for sharing. The premise was we usually post up the highlights, the good stuff. Um, that's what people tend to see on our social media accounts. When people ask us how we're doing, we just say, fine, how are you? But there's so much more behind um, that facade, essentially, that we put up. We share the good things. We keep the ugly, not so polished, not so great things to ourselves, and we work through them. But I just want to commend you on, your fighting spirit and for carrying on, for doing the things that need to be done day in and day out. So well done, and thank you for sharing again.
I thought a lot about like how to share it, and we talked right about like, hey, like there's so much I want to say on somebody else's platform. It's not I don't know if I can put this on my platform. So thank you for giving me an opportunity to tell my story, giving it a platform. Um, but but yeah, I mean, if I kept this stuff to myself, then you always look at somebody and say, "Oh, they've got it better than me," or "Oh, they've got it worse than me." Like, but the people that have it better than you on paper or social media or whatever you want to call it, you don't really know what they're going through, right? It's not real. Like social media is not a real outlet. It's not a real platform. in my opinion. People just, like you said, just post the highlights. People just show you the milestones, the things to smile about, you know. How do you put that on your social media? You know, like my story, you know, I don't know if it's the right place for it. You know, I think as time has progressed, like just keeping pushing, you know, like I think that's what my dad would have wanted me to do. You know, I think that's what, because he was very supportive of, you know, my relationship, my project, Lonely Wrist, like my watch enthusiasm. And before he passed away, like he had just got a job he just got his license in Nevada, like in real estate. He has license in North Carolina for 40 years or something, like one of the oldest active real estate license still in North Carolina. But he just got his license here and he went through a course and somebody in his course said something to him like, "Oh, if you're going to be a successful real estate agent, you need a nice watch."
That actually that's funny that you say that because that ties in nicely to the next thing that I want to talk to you about, specifically how we as humans tend to tie a lot of emotions and memories to places and objects. Even smells can instantly, in a way, transport us to a time and a place we've experienced in the past. Given our love for watches, the question that I was going to ask you naturally comes up. Of all the pieces that you own, which watch holds the most significance in your heart? And I think you were
Right.
driving towards that.
Yeah, I'm wearing it. My my dad's Breitling Super Ocean. It's the last generation Super Ocean Heritage two tone. We don't have to pull the picture up for this one. I can show it. But so as my dad was like, "Oh, you need a nice watch." Me and my wife, we go to the watch store here with my dad. And my dad's like, "I need the nicest watch in this store." I'm like, "Dad, you do not need the nicest watch in this store. I promise you." So we go to like the certified pre-owned Rolex section. He gets this like two-tone, like it was like a day date or something. Like diamond bezel, diamond markers, like mother of pearl dial. And he's like, "Yeah, man, I'm about to buy this." And I'm like, I mean, you should see my dad is like my dad has a bold personality. Like he was wearing like orange and green and like pink baseball like hats and stuff, and he was always wearing like nice dress shirts and stuff. And um, so I was like, "Dad, don't get that watch. Like that is money way wasted." And then so he goes up and he says like, "Well, what would you rather I buy?" And I'm like, "There's got to be something different. You know that is like way silly. You know." So then, anyways, we're going through the store, and I stumble upon this Super Ocean, you know, the one I just showed, and he was like, "Yeah, box it up," and now it's Father's Day, and I'm wearing his watch. So
Thank you for sharing. That's a beautiful sentiment. And it sounds like that was something that was passed down and has a lot of emotional, historical, and love imbued in it. And very fitting that you're wearing it today on Father's Day.
yeah, no, I told my brother like when we were working on the estate, I was like, "You can have everything, but you're not getting this watch," because this is like one of the moments that like, first of all, my dad was not really a watch guy, you know, but he had reached a point in his life where he had saw what I saw about watches. That like watches, whether they make you feel a certain way, or you know, in this case, or a status symbol, or whatever it is, right? Um, it was a cool moment that me, him, and my wife like all shared, you know. So yeah, this is the watch.
Well done. Safe to say that it's going to stay with you forever.
Definitely. Yeah, I don't wear it as much. Maybe because the sentimental attachment to it, and I just want to make sure it stays safe. Um, but but yeah, I can tell you I wear this more than I would have worn that day date. so, so yeah.
I love it. I love it. Thank you for sharing once again. But you've also accrued a ton of experience, both on your own skin, but also through inherent research that you've done, with all the brands that you've worked with. What is one piece of advice that you'd give anyone that's just now discovering watches and watch collecting as a whole? What would you say to them?
I think every time I've asked this question to a bunch of people, and I
Hmm.
feel like I'm going to say the same answer that all of us say, which is, find something that speaks to you. Find something that you love. Um, and watches are a weird hobby to get into because you think if you don't know, you think you have to have a lot of money to be a watch collector or to even be a watch enthusiast or whatever it is. Um, no, I mean you can have one Seiko and love that one Seiko that you purchased, like as much as I love my dad's Super Ocean or whatever. Um, but no, the watch community is a weird place. Don't ever let anybody take you off of this community. Like, don't ever like feel like you're never welcome in this community. And watches mean something different to each and every single one of us. So if if I had to start over, I would find out like what watches mean to me. And you're gonna make mistakes. Like you're gonna make mistakes in your collecting journey. Like I have, we all have. You have to kind of buy in a weird way. You kind of have to work your way or buy your way through different phases. You don't have to go into expensive watches, right? But you're gonna make some purchasing mistakes, and just realize what watches mean to you, how you plan to use them, or whether they're confidence tools for you, or just as a way to share a moment with a family member, a friend, or loved one. I would just kind of like niche. I don't know, niche down if that's the right word, but narrow down why you want to get into the watch community. What narrow down why you want to be a watch collector, um, and just go.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you. I got a triple combo question coming up for you. And they're all tied to your podcast, The Lonely Wrist. Think of it as the appetizer, the main, and dessert. They make a cohesive whole. Blake Rea, are you ready?
I don't think so anymore.
Think fast answers. Think fast answers, or take your time. It's fine. But
Hit me.
here we go. Here we go. Who was the one guest that got away, or someone you just can't seem to be able to book for an interview?
um, Richard Mill.
The Richard Mill.
Yeah. So I like went onto like the web database search engines that like tell you the email formats for companies, whether it's like first name, last name, or whatever. So I found them for Richard Mill and I totally guessed his email and sent him an email. And I never heard back. Um, and so I probably should keep emailing him, but I'll email him after this podcast.
Do it, Blake. Do it. And then message me and let me know how it went.
It's
Part two. Who is one guest you still, to this day, can't believe you interviewed? And no, you can't use me as your perfect example.
not. um, that's a challenging one. Ironically, there's a couple. So I'm gonna have to shout out to Kelly Yock. You had her on your podcast. Um, Jan Edox, uh, the CEO of Doxa, which is like, I mean, God, dude, I dreamed about having him on my podcast and just like making that happen, and it just took a really long time. Um, Roman from Zenith. Obviously I'm a Zenith fanboy. Francois Xavier from Ulysse Nardon. I mean, Stefan from Maurice Lacroix. I mean, there's so many names. Um, Independence. I really enjoyed my podcast with Jerome from Serica. I mean, that's a podcast that I go back and I listen to, and I'm like, dude, his passion is just freaking like music to my ears. And that I don't listen to my own podcasts. I'm sure you probably don't either. Uh,
No.
but fun fact. But that's one I've actually went back and listened to. Um, I mean, Jose Perestroika, the one that set it all off for me. Um, who else? I mean, Rashawn Smith from Super Niche, like in Restrict Pod. Like I was listening to those guys before I even was doing a podcast. Um, who else? I mean, there's just been so many. There's been so many. Like, and if I forgot anybody, I'm sorry. Um, but yeah, and then it even goes back to like Justin, like my partner, like my former partner, like we were best friends. Like started watch collecting together. Like just to have him on so many of my podcast episodes has been freaking cool, dude.
I love it. So you can't pick one. I understand. I get it. They're all great. Last one to round out the trio. Who is one guest that you'd be willing to sell your second favorite watch for if it meant you could book them?
I have been chasing down like Nico Leonard.
Okay. Yeah.
Be a cool one. Um, I think it'd be cool to talk to Teddy, like Teddy Baldessar. I think that'd be super cool. Um, I think if I had both of those on, like I'd probably fanboy a little bit. Um, Richard Mill, Mark Wahlberg. Like, I mean, dude, I see Mark Wahlberg always getting new heat on Instagram, and I'm like, dude, like, he lives in Vegas.
I
Like,
was gonna
just
say you're in Vegas.
yeah, like, what the hell? Like, Vegas people need to come together. But no, like, I mean, Waco would be cool from Revolution. Uh, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that I'd love to have on, and hopefully, I don't have to sell a watch to get them on.
Well, you've heard it here. If you happen to be any of the people that Blake just mentioned and you are listening to my podcast for some reason, first off, thank you. And secondly, reach out to Blake and
So
let him know.
I do want to add to that.
Hmm.
Like I said earlier, like I am a gatekeeper in a weird way. Like that I'm a keeper of this. This is not my podcast. It's my platform. But I feel very weird about it to say, hey, this is my podcast. This is my platform. This is my outlet. I don't feel like that. You know, when I first started, it was more just about conversations being documented, than it was about making a podcast, right? And growing it into a media outlet or whatever, right? Now with 60 with listeners in 60 countries, damn, it was hard to get that out. uh, I think that there's an opportunity for anybody to come on a podcast, you know like if you have a unique perspective on watches, I want to hear it and I want to talk about it. So you're welcome on my podcast.
I love it. I love it. I thoroughly enjoyed my time with you on your podcast. And again, I look forward to listening to more of your episodes, both previously recorded and upcoming ones. But Blake, you've done it. We've reached the end. And as a thank you, I'd like to offer you the opportunity to talk about something that you yourself feel passionate about or something that you like to shine a light on. This could be literally anything from a local nonprofit to a great movie you watched and just can't stop thinking about, to a book you'd recommend or a cause that you'd like for people to know a little bit more info on. Blake, the floor is yours.
So yeah, I mean, obviously we talked about my journey, right? So epilepsy, a lot of us are suffering and you don't know. I would encourage anybody who's listening to really understand, like how we live and how we get through life. Um, the Epilepsy Foundation, amazing. It's an amazing resource. You can donate there, or just, even donate your time and listen and learn about how we make it, how we stay positive, how we deal with the disorder or the condition. Um, maybe you'll understand a little bit more of how my brain works at this point.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And of course, all the links to the Epilepsy Foundation will be included in the show notes. And thank you for sharing that. We appreciate, you shining light on this and telling us your story. If people want to talk to you some more, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Hello at lonelywrist.com. Blake at lonelywrist. Blake E. Ray on Instagram. You can go to lonelywrist.com, fill out the form. Um, I bet you can even comment on my YouTube videos. I reply to every single YouTube comment.
I
So
can attest to that. I can attest to that.
yeah, you do. Yeah, I think I replied to yours.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Blake, it's been an absolute joy to speak with you. Thanks for spending some of your precious time with us and for sharing your story with us today. It's been a treat. and I appreciate you immensely.
Yeah. Thanks for giving me a platform.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's been my pleasure. And that's a wrap on today's episode of the Timist Podcast Series. Once again, a huge thanks to our incredible guest, Blake Rea from The Lonely Wrist, and of course to all of you for tuning in. Until next time. That concludes this episode of the Timist Podcast Series. A sincere thank you for hanging out with us. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, then please push all the buttons that will help you hear more of us in the future. If you'd like to continue the conversation, you can drop a comment in the associated YouTube video or reach out to me on Instagram at TheTimistIG. Thanks for listening. I'm The Timist. Be well, and I'll catch you in the next one.